It's 10:03. Are we ready?
We need about 1 minute. Actually, no, we're good to go.
All right.
Good morning. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, August 24th, 2021. This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. General Counsel?
Good morning. In accordance with Governor Newsom's order of March 2020, this Board of Water and Powers Commissioner meeting is being conducted remotely. Similarly, in accordance with that order, all public comment will be taken telephonically. Members of the public wishing to call in and offer public comment may do so by calling 213-306-3065. Again, that number is 213-306-3065. When prompted, please enter meeting code 146-582-8726. Again, the meeting code is 146-582-8726. When calling in, please reference if you are speaking on a specific item or on general public comment. You will have 2 minutes per item for a total of 5 minutes. When calling in, please turn down your computer so that we don't get feedback. During the course of the meeting, we may take a recess if we encounter technical difficulties or lose a quorum due to technical difficulties. At this point, I turn it over back to you, Madam Secretary.
I will now conduct roll. President McCLAIN-HILL.
Present.
Vice President Reyes.
Present.
Commissioner BARAD Hopkins.
Present.
Commissioner LEHRER.
Present.
4 members present and a quorum. I will now turn it over to President McCLAIN-HILL.
Thank you for that. I don't have any formal opening comments except to note that this is the first board meeting where Alsamo Collins is attending as the head of the water systems. I'm extremely excited about that and just wanted to acknowledge his presence. I know that there are a couple of other announcements with respect to executive staff that Nancy Sutley will be making during the general manager's comments, so I will leave that to her. And with that, I will move to item number 2, general public comment.
Good morning, callers. Please state your full name and the agenda item you will be speaking on. Please be mindful that you will have 2 minutes for comment. The first speaker is General Manager Tony Goff.
Good morning, President McCLAIN-HILL and Commissioners. My name is Tony Goff, and I am the General Manager of the Cayugas Municipal Water District. I'm here to thank you and support your approval of the Cost Offset Program, Agenda Item number 23. Cayugas is your metropolitan water neighbor to the north. Like Las Virgenes Municipal Water District and portions of LADWP's service area in the valley, we are almost entirely dependent on Metropolitan State Water Project supplies.
Mr. Goff? Mr. Goff, are you there?
I am here, yes.
Oh, you cut off. Were you?
Oh, okay.
Were you finished speaking?
No, I was not.
Okay, well, please proceed. Sorry about that.
I'm not sure where I got cut off.
Well, why don't you start from the beginning? And your time.
Sure, we just wanted to. Sure. My name's Tony Goff. I'm the General Manager at Cayugas, and we just wanted to show our support and thank the commissioners today for their approval of the Cost Offset Program. Los Angeles is recognized as a leader in conservation, resource diversification, and adaptation towards a sustainable future. We appreciate your leadership today. We have all invested in the metropolitan water system, a system that both Los Angeles and Cayugas rely upon for our water's sustainability and prosperity. Cayugas appreciates your regional leadership in helping secure the reliability we all depend on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Angelica Duarte.
Hi there. Good morning. My name is Angelica Dueñas. I'm a resident of Sun Valley, and I was just calling because as a member of a community and or local organizer and speaking with local residents, you know, the LADWP Valley Generation Plant is in our district, in our community. There was a methane leak that we became aware of about a year ago, actually, and there still haven't been any public meetings being held by LADWP to let us know exactly what happened, how much methane was released, were there any harm. We know that there's some legal cases, some lawsuits against LADWP with about 2,000 people who are reportedly who are affected by the methane leak. You know, we demand to get information, to know the truth of what happened, and to have LADWP hold these meetings and let us know. And so I'm just asking for the board to please facilitate at least a minimum of 5 meetings, community meetings, where they are held within Sun Valley and Pacoima, the areas that may have been affected by the methane leak, where these meetings are held in the morning and in the evening, and online via Zoom to allow for people to be aware, to know what's going on, what happened, and what are the plans for the plant going forward, since they are supposed to go 100% fossil-free by 2045. So what is that plan, and what does that look like for our community? Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. The next caller is Andrea O'Laughlin. Andrea O'Laughlin. Okay, we'll come back. The next caller is Sue Steinberg.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yes, hi, I live here in the San Fernando Valley, and I want to bring up a pretty archaic policy that is instituted where DWP has a vector control unit that comes and actually sprays poisons and kills bees. First of all, I had bees on my property. I was never warned that someone was going to come onto my property and spray toxic poisons. So a warning would have been nice. And number 2, bees are endangered. And I understand if they're, you know, aggressive or Africanized, but that isn't what these were. These were harmless honeybees. They had been there for well over a year. In fact, it was the second time they'd come back. And I came outside with thousands of dead bees everywhere and the horrible smell of poison. I did manage to find out, because I have the tape of DWP coming and spraying. And I think that in light of what's going on and our awareness of trying to live in an eco-friendly world, instead of spraying poisons, DWP should really institute a policy of relocating bees. I will help with that. I have a number of beekeepers who would come and take them off of people's property. Again, I was never warned that someone was going to come and do this, and the smell of the poison was there for weeks afterwards. And when I called, they said, don't touch it, it's highly toxic, which is also of a concern because people walk by there. There's a lemon tree growing there, so now I don't know, if that's been affected. And they, dogs, kids, people, it's really an old practice that should change. If I just have 4 just suggestions. Number 1, notify homeowners before spraying any kind of toxic poison anywhere near their property or surrounding property. 2, to relocate the hives and help endangered honeybees. 3, again, I'll help. Let's coordinate with beekeepers who will come and take them. And 4, give homeowners actually the option to keep the hives. They weren't hurting anybody. Everybody knew about them. And this would be a great PR campaign for DWP because many utilities around the country do this, and it's an outdated system. It needs to change, and DWP could be the leader in making that change. It would be a great story.
Excuse me, speaker, can you please wrap up your comments?
Yes, I just want to say, please stop killing bees, harmless honeybees, and if you're going to spray poison anywhere near someone's property, you really need to notify them. And that is my comment.
Thank you. Next caller, area code 312, last 2 digits is 16. Please state your name and the item you will be speaking on.
Hi, my name is Andrea O'Laughlin. I'll be speaking on item 8C.
Please go ahead.
So I'm a member of the Repower LA Coalition, which represents a diverse group of environmental justice, labor, and community-based organizations. We've been fighting to erase utility debt for low-income families in California and LA for the past year. Our community-driven organizing and advocacy were crucial in winning $2 billion in the state budget for utility debt relief, and now we need a report within 30 days from the department detailing now that relief funds will be spent. Our communities have a lot of questions like, is the utility shut-off moratorium still in effect? Will it be extended? We also need to see a plan how LADWP will deal with the remaining debt after the state funding has been spent. We need LADWP to improve their outreach to make ratepayers aware of existing shut-off moratoriums and explain what a moratorium even means. We recommend that the LADWP improve their community outreach overall. The community needs to know about lifeline programs and enrollment into them. So we are calling on the LADWP Board of Commissioners to equitably distribute state relief funds in a transparent process, along with the following affordability measures. 1, allocating more funds for debt relief not covered by the statewide allocation, particularly focusing on lifeline and low-income discount participants. 2, to extend the shut-off moratorium to January 2022. 3, implement long-term affordability measures like arrange management plans, level pay plans, and increased enrollment in discount programs. And lastly, improve customer service outreach, particularly focusing on communities of color who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 to make them aware of debt relief shutoff protections. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. The next caller is area code 213, last 2 digits 98. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on. Okay, we'll return to that one. They're off?
Gone. No.
Air caller with the area code 312. Last, oh, that's who just spoke. Sorry about that. Area code 323, last 2 digits 39.
Hi.
Please state your name.
My name is Vicki Kirschenbaum. Thanks for this opportunity. I have read a great deal of the NREL LA report, and there's so much to applaud. I did sit in on the August 19 Energy Committee meeting of LA City Council and was very glad to hear the directive to LADWP to map out a path to 100% clean energy by 2035. I just want to strongly urge this board to recommend a limited role for green hydrogen in that path. No renewable energy credits, and no biofuels, as outlined in one of the scenarios in the NREL report. Green hydrogen can play a role in storage, but we should not be maintaining 3 local gas plants and building an 840 megawatt gas plant in Utah with the false promise of someday transitioning them to green hydrogen. It would take 4 power plants worth of renewables to make the hydrogen for that one plant in Utah. Green hydrogen has enormous NOx emissions when burned on a large scale. And hydrogen can't use the pipelines or other gas infrastructure So all that would need to be replaced. It would be better to build renewable projects that would go straight into the grid. Green hydrogen at the scale currently being proposed by LADWP is not cost effective or environmentally friendly, but a way to keep us reliant on gas for decades. Significant investment in local solar, storage, and demand response, that's the way that we would build local resilience, especially in the face of heat waves and fires. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller begins with area code 570, last two digits 57. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
Good morning. My name is McCLAIN-HILL, and I'll be speaking on item 8C. I'm a resident of Los Angeles and a member of the Repower Coalition as well. Just to follow up to what my colleague said earlier, since our organizing and advocacy were crucial in winning that $2 billion for state budget of the state budget for utility debt relief, now we really need to see a report from the department within 30 days to detailing how those relief funds will be spent in order to make sure that transparency and inclusion are a crucial part of the process. We're also calling for transparent affordability measures. As said earlier, allocating more funds for debt relief not covered by the statewide debt relief program, especially focusing on lifeline and low-income discount participants, and extending the shutoff moratorium until January 2022. That's really in order to make sure that, you know, we've fought really hard and we appreciate the work of this board on helping us win utility debt relief, and now we need to make sure that program can work as intended. We need more time. We also need to implement long-term affordability measures like arrearage management plans, level pay plans, and increase enrollment in discount programs to make sure that we never find ourselves in a crisis like this again. And we need improved customer service and outreach, particularly for communities of color who are disproportionately impacted by COVID, so we can make sure that these funds get into the right hands. I really appreciate your time this morning and all your hard work on this effort. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller, area code 562, last two digits 99. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
Yeah, my name is Brittany Rivas, and I'm a resident of Huntington Park, and I'm calling about agenda item 8C.
Thank you. Please
I'm a member of the Repower LA Coalition, and we've been fighting to erase utility debt for low-income families in California and Los Angeles for the past year. Ultimately, our community-driven organizing and advocacy were crucial in winning the $2 billion in the state budget for utility debt relief. And now that we have done that, we need a report within 30 days from the department detailing now that the relief funds and how they will be spent. We are calling on LADWP Board of Commissioners to equitably distribute state relief funds in a transparent process along with the following affordability measures: allocating more funds for debt relief not covered by the statewide allocation, particularly focusing on lifeline and low-income discount participants. Also, extend the shutoff moratoria to January 2022. Implement long-term affordability measures like arrearage management plans, level pay plans, and increased enrollment in discount programs. And lastly, improve customer service and outreach, particularly focusing on communities of color who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 to make them aware of debt relief shutoff protections. Thank you for your time.
Next caller, area code 323, last two digits 34. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
My name is Jasmine Vargas. I would like to speak on item 8C in general comment.
Go ahead.
And thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate the troubleshooting earlier for the public comment, so shout out to you, the tech people. Thank you for your tireless efforts. I want to speak today as a Repower LA Coalition member and senior organizer for Food and Water Watch, representing thousands of members that are fighting for climate justice in LA. And it's important to highlight how important it is to listen to the communities on the ground and the customers that are on the front lines of the climate crisis, our EJ partners that are always standing up for community involvement and transparency. So I want to echo those points today. I also want to point out that recommendation to extend the moratorium in the presentation today, and I wholeheartedly think that's absolutely important as those CAP funds are being delivered. We also have to cover what will be the difference, the leftover of utility debt for Angelenos. We need to create a more sustainable, more equitable system that could potentially reduce not just the energy burden on communities across LA, but can also help us bring in that clean energy future that the LADWP and this board has been leading on for years. We need to make this a process that is elevating the energy democracy that's going to take to get this done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next caller is area code 213, last two digits 06. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on. Caller with area code 213, last two digits 06. Moving on to the next caller. Area code 617, last two digits 12. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
Hi, my name is Alex Jassett, and I'm calling about item 8C.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm with Physicians for Social Responsibility Los Angeles and the LA LEAP Coalition, both of which are committed to energy and environmental justice, and we are close allies with the Repower Coalition, which has been fighting to erase utility debt for the past year. Thanks to Repower's incredible organizing and winning $2 billion in the state budget for utility debt relief, we now need a report within 30 days from the department detailing how those relief funds will be spent. We also want to see LADW's plan for how to deal with the remaining debt after the state funding has been spent. And we also recommend that LADWP improve their community outreach overall. The community needs to know about lifeline programs and how to enroll in them, in addition to being included in the decision-making process for policies that will affect them directly. In short, we're calling on LADWP Board of Commissioners to equitably distribute state relief funds in a transparent process along with the following affordability measures. One, allocating more funds for the remaining debt left over after the statewide allocation, particularly focusing on lifeline and low-income discount participants. Extending the shut-off moratorium to January of 2022. Implementing long-term affordability measures like arrearage management plans, level pay plans, and increased enrollment in discount programs that will help prevent utility debt from accruing in the future, and improving customer service and outreach, particularly focusing on communities of color who are disproportionately impacted by both COVID-19 and LADWP's policies to make sure that they are aware of the debt relief and shut-off protections. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Board President McCLAIN-HILL, we have 10 more public speakers. In keeping with the press of business, would you like to limit them to 1 minute each?
I think everything's going fine as is. Can we just proceed?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next caller is area code 626 with the last two digits 02. Area code 626, the last two digits 02. Are you there? Okay, moving on. Area code 626 with the last two digits 86. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
Maro Kakusian, calling for agenda item 8C.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So hi, my name is Maro Kakusian with Physicians for Social Responsibility LA, LEAP LA, and the Repower LA Coalition. We have been fighting to erase utility debt for low-income families in California and Los Angeles for the past year, and we are calling on the LADWP Board of Commissioners to equitably distribute state relief funds in a transparent process along with the following affordability measures. So first is allocating more funds for debt relief not covered by the statewide allocation, particularly focusing on Lifeline and low-income discount participants. 2, extending the shutoff moratorium to January 2022. 3, implement long-term affordability measures like management plans, level pay plans, and increased enrollment in discount programs, and to improve customer service and outreach, particularly focusing on communities of color who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 to make them aware of debt relief shutoff protections. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is area code 818 with the last 2 digits 22. Please state your name and the
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Veronica Padilla. I'm the Executive Director of McCLAIN-HILL Beautiful. And I just wanted to say ditto to my partners at Repower LA, which we are also a member of. And I just wanted to kind of tell you about our experience when we were lucky enough to provide COVID relief to our community members. We would provide financial relief to our community members, and we did a little survey and we would ask them what their biggest hardship was. In the beginning, there was a lot of people saying that it was food and housing, but as we continued providing this help, it started changing to utilities being their biggest hardship. Folks were really being able to go to food pantries and getting assistance with rent and stuff, but there was no support really for to cover utilities, and especially their DWP bills. When we did the CARE program where we help community members get the small grant, the $500, it was really short-lived, and the process was incredibly difficult, and we weren't given enough time to really provide the amount of help that was needed out there. So I just wanted to share that story and let you know that this is a real need for our community members. We do need to do better outreach, and we need to not forget our community members and think that this is over. This definitely continues to be a need, and we look forward to working with the department to do a better job of providing help to our community members. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller is area code 818, last 2 digits 29. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
Hello. I'm calling today to provide public comment on item 8C. My name is Gabriel Carrillo, and I'm a resident of Northridge. I am a member of the Repower LA Coalition and an employee of McCLAIN-HILL Beautiful. The reason I am here today is because I have seen firsthand how the Repower Coalition has aided in the fight to erase utility debt for low-income families here in the Los Angeles area and elsewhere in California. Repower represents a diverse group of environmental justice, labor, and community-based organizations, and keeping it going is the least we can do for these communities. Just recently, I helped a family in filling out their low-income application. The man came with his wife and young daughter. He mentioned that he had recently been incarcerated, and due to that, they were all living at his mother's house, who was also low income. They did not have the technological means to get the pay stub that he needed to fill out the application, or really any other proof of income that they needed for the application. So the least I could do was give them my contact info and keep in contact with them so that they could get back to me when they could. It took about a week to 2 weeks before they were able to finally get that information and allow me to fill out that for them and then turn it into them at the mail office. I did so not to be annoying, but I wanted to ensure that they were able to properly get the help that they had sought out, especially since they were able to do so in their own community. That is why I once again say that we are collectively calling on LADWP and the Board of Commissioners to equitably distribute state relief funds in a transparent process, along with the following measure: allocating more funds for debt relief not covered by the statewide allocation, particularly focusing on lifeline and low-income discount participants. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller is area code 818 with the last two digits 76. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
Hello, my name is Reyes, and I'm a resident of Pacoima and a community organizer with Pacoima Beautiful. I'm here to provide public comment on item 8C. We are members of the Repower LA Coalition and also work on helping community members apply to the programs meant to relieve the ongoing utility stress that is exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm here to share the story of community members who came to Pacoima Beautiful for help on family utility bills and their debt. Unfortunately, when they contacted us, they let us know that it was difficult for them to reach out and apply to programs like the LADWP Low Income Program due to fear of eligibility. This is due to the lack of income and pay stub proof because her husband was a freelancer. We have been fighting to erase utility debt with Repower as well for low-income families in California and Los Angeles for the past years. And our communities have a lot of questions, like, is the utility shutoff moratorium still in effect, and is it going to be extended? We need LADWP to improve their outreach to make ratepayers aware of existing shutoff moratoriums and explain what a moratorium means. We also recommend that LADWP improves their community outreach overall. The community needs to know about the Lifetime programs and enrollments in them. For this reason, we're calling on LADWP Board of Commissioners to equitably distribute state relief funds in a transparent process, along with the following affordability measures, which can look like implementing long-term affordability measures, like arranged management plans, level pay plans, and increased enrollment plans and discount programs. We appreciate your efforts and thank you for listening to our community's highest needs.
Thank you. The next caller is area code 818 with the last two digits 00. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on.
David Peterson, item number 23.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm the general manager of Las Virgenes Municipal Water District and calling to support the recommended action with item number 23. As proposed, this item will allow DWP to use the operational flexibility that's provided by its water system to help benefit the region in response to the statewide drought conditions that we're facing. Specifically, the action will involve shifting demands within DWP's system from the State Water Project to the Colorado River. And the State Water Project is currently at a 5% allocation and supplies are very limited. My agency, along with our neighbor Calleguas, are nearly exclusively dependent on State Water Project supplies. And so this action by your commission will help to support our response to the drought. And we appreciate the help of LADWP in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller, area code 818 with the last two digits 14.
Good morning. My name is Maria Guzman, and I am a resident of Selmar. I am employed with Pacoima Beautiful and member of the Repower LA Coalition as well. I'm here to speak on item AC. But first of all, I would like to share a story of a grandma who's taking care of her two granddaughters because the mother has some problems with the law. This grandma, who has no other job, is being stressed out because she has a debt of more than $2,000 on debt to LADWP. She already has a utility low income discount, but it's not enough. So she called to Pacoima Beautiful requesting for support. I couldn't refer her to Maravilla Foundation because her immigration status, which is really sad. I hope LADWP could provide more support for these families who are struggling with this kind of situation. Today, I'm here calling on LADWP Board of Commissioners to collaborate, distribute state relief funds in a transparent process,
along with the following affordability measures: improve customer service and outreach, particularly focusing on communities of color who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, to make them aware of their relief should have protections. I really appreciate your hard work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next caller is with area code 818 with the last 2 digits 14. Caller with area code 818, last 2 digits 14. Okay, area code 951 with the last 2 digits 84. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on. Okay, caller with area code 747, last 2 digits 06. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on. Caller? Yes, please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on. Are you there? We can't hear you. I'm going to circle back to her. Okay, area code 626, last 2 digits 02. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on. One more time. Area caller, are you there? Okay, next caller, area code 626 with the last 2 digits 33. Please state your name and the item you'll be speaking on. Next caller, area code 818 with the last 2 digits 45. Caller, are you there?
Hello, yes, I'm here. My name is Felipe Escobar. I'm here to speak on item AC with Tacoma Beautiful, and I'm also a member of the Report LA Coalition. We've been fighting to raise utility debt for low-income families in California and LA for the past year, and I'm here to speak about a woman that came to our offices for help. She's a street vendor, and last year she was hit hard by the pandemic because she wasn't able to be out there making income as much as she was able to do before the pandemic. On top of that, she had to get surgery. And after she got surgery, she's not able to work anymore. So now her utility bills are piling up, and she's not able to go to Maria Foundation to get funds because her immigration status. So as we think about utility debt, as the board members, to not forget our immigrant communities that have been impacted greatly by the pandemic. So that's why we are here calling on the LADWP board members to equitably distribute state relief funds in a transparent process, along with the following affordable measures, including allocating more funds for debt relief not covered by the state allocation, particularly focusing on Lifeline and low-income discount participants, and to extend the shutdown moratorium to January 22. This will allow populations that are very vulnerable and have been hit hard by the pandemic, such as street vendors and undocumented populations, to have more time and potentially get some help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now circle back, give one last chance to these callers. Area code 213, last 2 digits 06. Are you there? Okay, moving on. Area code 626 with the last 2 digits 02. Caller, are you there? Next number, area code 626 with the last 2 digits 33.
Yes, hello. My name is Gloria Mushunga Roberts.
and I'm a member of SCOPE in South LA, and we are also members of Repower LA Coalition. And I'm calling specifically to tell the story of some of our members who really are in a desperate situation, specifically impacted because of COVID. They were already in, bad straits before COVID, but COVID added to them, including a family who it was a retired wife and husband. And when they turned around, some of their other family members had to move back in with them because of COVID, and they couldn't work. And so then there were more people in the household, and it increased their rate of pay on their utilities at such a rate, and with very few people in the household working. And then, of course, with the continuation, I mean, it's just something that we really see a lot of problems with. Really quickly, a second issue that I've seen personally and people I've talked to are people who are using, they might have, for example, devices that they need to help for their health, respirators and things like that. And so they need this assistance. And what they really need, another thing that I've talked to other people about as a member, and also, making phone calls earlier in the year about this DWP relief, is people need help to get through the technology. And we feel that that is really, a big thing, because it's one thing to offer the funds, but if you can't get through to talk to someone, then it's the same as they're not being there. So we're really asking for, as the others before me have stated, allocation of more funds, extending the shut-off moratorium to January 22, implementing long-term affordability measures, and improve customer service. Thank you very much for giving me.
Was that the last caller?
Caller, are you there with area code 626, last two digits 02?
She was saying thank you, so she wrapped up. Is that the last caller?
One more, we're just circling around area code 951 with the last two digits 84. Are you there? Okay, Andrea O'Loughlin's already spoken, so she's still on there. But
I think that was actually my phone number.
okay. And who's this? Who's the caller?
Cameron Hurt.
Oh, would you like to speak, Mr. Hurt?
Yes, I would. I think for some reason my number was registered as Andrea at the beginning, but Andrea called from a different number, it sounds like.
Okay, you may go ahead.
Okay, yeah. My name is Cameron Hurt. I'm a resident of Delray, and I'm a member of the Repower Coalition, proud to be so. And you've already heard so much from our organizations and what we're fighting for, what we're standing for, erasing utility debt for low-income families, and have to say how crucial we were, of course, in winning the $2 billion. Want to re-emphasize the need for that 30-day report within 30 days from the department, talking about where the relief funds are going to go. We need a plan to see how the debt is going to be dealt with, and we need the questions answered for the community as far as when the shut-off moratorium is going to end, will it be extended, and just really want to emphasize the humanity of making sure that this doesn't ever end, but especially making sure that it extends into January 2022, as well as allocating more funds and relief to the statewide allocation, just so that all the missing, amounts of relief that are needed can also be met. Everything that the statewide relief doesn't hit, including focusing on those lifeline and low-income discount participants, as well as the need for these long-term affordability measures, arrearage management plans, level pay plans, and increased enrollment and discount programs. We really need to make sure the community is aware of these programs. Like the last speaker said, if folks aren't aware, then that shouldn't be a punishment for them. I think that means that we have to reflect on what's not being done to get the word out, including improving that customer service and outreach, particularly focusing on the communities of color hit by COVID-19, and making sure that it's incredibly clear that DWP, energy and power as well as water is a human right and something that should not be shut off, and that LADWP is doing everything within their power to prevent that from happening. So I would like to thank you for the time.
Thank you. I think we have one last caller. Area code 626 with the last 2 digits 33. Nothing. Okay, that clears the queue. All public comment is now closed.
Thank you for that. And for those who participate in the meeting via public comment, I want to say thank you to you as well. Technology has been both a lifeline during this pandemic, but also I appreciate can feel pretty alienating. We can't see you. You can't see us, and yet it is critically important that we remain connected. So appreciate your taking the time this morning, raising all of the issues that were raised. So thank you for that. We'll now go to the report from our general manager.
Thank you. Good morning, Nancy Setley, Senior Assistant General Manager, sitting in for Marty. Just a couple of things. We have 2 new members of the management team who started in the last couple of weeks. First of all, Monique Earle, who is the Senior Assistant General Manager and our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Monique started yesterday, so I'm sure she's figured everything out, but we're very glad to have her aboard. She brings a lot of experience from the city, from LADWP, where she was most recently, the Controller's Office, Mayor and Council, and a wealth of experience around these issues around diversity, equity, inclusion. So we are very glad to welcome Monique and look forward to working with her. And then second, we've Mark Northrup started last week as our new Chief Information Technology Officer, and he also brings decades of experience in information technology for both the public and the private sector. And he came most recently from IBM Global Business Services as the lead account for energy and utilities, and he will oversee the information Technology Services Division and facilitate the development and implementation of a new strategic technology plan. So we're very glad to have both of them aboard, and I believe they're both listening in on the meeting. And then just a couple of other quick things that I'm going to turn to my colleagues for. Anselmo Collins will give an update on the Metropolitan Water District water alert announcement from last week and a couple of other personnel announcements. So let me turn it over to Anselmo.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, commissioners. Just a couple of things. The first one I want Bernard has been transferred from our Water Engineering and Technical Services Division to now be the Director of the Water Operations Division. So he's replacing me there. And also, I want to announce the promotion of Evelyn Cortez Davis as the new Director for the Water Engineering and Technical Services Division. So both of them are part now of my senior staff. I also wanted to provide a short update on the water supply situation. So it's looking like we are going into a 3rd consecutive year of dry weather here in California. With the latest forecast, I'm hearing that possibly we may have a La Nina condition developing. So these ongoing dry conditions put stress definitely in our imported water supplies. As a reminder, in an average year, we typically buy about half our water from the Metropolitan Water District. That's either from the Northern California area or from the Colorado River. The other half comes from our own Los Angeles aqueduct, as well as our local supplies. But when you have a dry year like the one we're having this year, up to 70% of our supply can come from the Metropolitan Water District. Now, the State Water Project, which provides the water from Northern California, as you know, is in a historic low. Some of the reservoirs like Lake Oroville are so low that they've had to shut off some of their hydroelectric power plants. On the Colorado River, you probably heard that the Bureau of Reclamation has indicated that due to the low water levels in Lake Mead, there will be the first ever Tier 1 shortage declared in 2022, which basically means that states like Arizona and Nevada will have to cut back their delivery starting in 2022. California is not affected by this Tier 1 designation yet, but there is a 5% probability that in 2023, if Lake Mead continues to lower the way it is now, that California might be also asked to cut back. Here in Southern California, despite the low runoff conditions from the Northern California area, the Eastern Sierra, and also from the Colorado, Metropolitan Water District still currently has enough adequate supplies in the regional storage to help meet all their demands. In response to the ongoing dry conditions, you have seen that the governor of the state, Governor Newsom, has called for a voluntary 15% water use reduction from the entire state, and this was back in July. Just last week, the Metropolitan Water District Board went to a water supply alert condition. An alert calls for regional conservation through drought ordinances and other measures in order to mitigate the use of storage reserves. Luckily, LADWP has maintained conservation measures within phase 2 of our water storage contingency plan, which basically means that our customers are limited to outdoor watering to only 3 days a week. At the July 20th board meeting, we provided your board an overview of the conservation efforts and the outreach strategy. We're implementing our plans to ramp up our conservation outreach efforts and messaging, and we're pushing out our current and new programs to help our customers conserve water, such as our turf replacement design, our single-family residential home water use reports, and others. We also have resurrected what we call the drop, and we're doing a marketing campaign to save water the LA way. We have our water conservation response unit that's enforcing the city's emergency water conservation ordinances and also investigating water waste reports. The public can report water waste by calling 1-800-DIAL-DWP. That's 1-800-342-5397. And just a reminder to all our customers that the outdoor watering is based on your home address. So if you live in an odd number street address, you can water 3 days a week, being Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. If you are in an even number street address, your watering days are Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Watering by sprinklers is limited to 8 minutes per station per watering day. And lastly, the watering is limited to the hours between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Anselmo. And then we have one other quick report from Brian Wilbur, Senior Assistant General Manager, Power System Construction, Maintenance, and Operations. There was a transmission tower supporting the Victorville Century line that was damaged after being hit by a vehicle. So Brian's going to give a brief presentation on the efforts to repair that.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, commissioners. Good morning. I'm going to burn through these slides pretty quickly. They're mostly pictures, but essentially what we had is a problem with our Victory Century line. And Reggie, could you go to the next slide? And these are the original Boulder 1 and 2 lines, and they were put in service back in 1936. It's about 266 miles in length, consists of 2,695 towers. And the H&H conductor on here, it's kind of unique to the department. This is our copper 512 MCM conductor that was put in originally, and a lot of this was replaced. And I'll get into that into the next slide. Go to the next slide. Like I said, this was put in 1936. Since then, it's been divided into multiple sections. It comes into the Victorville switching station, and This portion of the line is a Victory Century line 1 and 2, and they're part of the original lines, but these are the only two lines that come in from the northern end of the system and come into the middle of Los Angeles. They come into the Century Station in the center of Los Angeles. Next slide. On August 5th, we got a call essentially that the tower was hit by a vehicle, which is a little odd because this is going through the middle of the desert, but it was one of the dirt roads going through there where a car came through. We immediately notified our construction and maintenance group who went out there to assess the damage. Next slide. As you can see where the car ended up here, and it doesn't really, you can't really appreciate the magnitude of the way this car launched into the air and into this tower. That crossbar that it was residing on that's now on the ground is about 10 feet in the air normally. And so it was launched off an embankment, hit the tower, essentially crippled that tower and brought it over. Next slide. We immediately flew some distribution mechanics, supervisors out to the job to assess it. We got our transmission engineering and structural engineering out there to assess whether the tower was stable enough to continue. And we dispatched crews from Metro, Victorville, and Mojave to start transporting tools and materials out there. Next slide. So if you look where this is, kind of in the middle of the desert where it comes down next to the 15 freeway. And if you remember in 2016, we had the Blue Cut fire, which is directly south of this. And so a lot of this conductor was replaced at that time. During the Blue Cut fire, we had an outage on these lines for approximately 40 days. And they're very critical, obviously, to our infrastructure and bringing power into Los Angeles. Next slide. Immediately after we determined that the tower was going to be unstable and wouldn't be able to carry the weight of the lines, environmental was informed and they came out to the site. We had to bring in extra security to watch all of our vehicles. Fleet provided some 110-ton hydro cranes, along with operators and drivers, along with our transmission engineering and our structural engineering groups. Next slide. So first things first, we had to grade the site. And these are the emergency structures that we were putting in. And we bought these recently just for this occasion. Normally in this situation, we'd have to erect a new tower or a temporary tower next to it, which requires a lot more site prep. These are fiberglass poles that are that slide together. The overall structure height is about 126 feet. And these were able to be brought out. They're about 35 foot long sections. They slide in together. They transport very easily. They're also a lot lighter and easier to put in and much faster. Next slide. So here you can see where they were going ahead and putting those together. Next slide. The site prep that came in, rather than building a whole new foundation for a temporary tower, we were able to just plant these right into the ground. Next slide. This is the erection of these particular fiberglass poles being put in. Next slide. You can see the temp structure being put together. Next slide. So these were put in about 30 feet away of the original structure. Where that structure, we had to stabilize the old tower and secure it in place while we started the transfer. Next slide. At that point, the transfer of the conductors from the old tower, this becomes quite precarious here because of the stability of the old tower and the spring steel or the spring left in the steel after it's been bent over. And as we release the tension of it. So this is a very slow process and a very calculated process. Next slide. You can see here everything being transferred over to the new structure. Next slide. Also, in this particular, in transferring this wire over, the height of the wire off of the ground there was a significant change going over to the new structure. So we had to also rebuild the structure next to it and dead end the conductor so we could pick the wire far enough off the ground when it gets suspended into the new tower. Next slide. This is just showing the removal of the old tower once we were able to transfer most of the conductor over. Next slide. This is just some more of the removal of the old tower. Next slide. And the next slide. Right. So essentially, this is a temporary structure complete with the old structure out of the way. Now that this is in place, we're able to go through, build a new foundation for a new tower, rebuild that old tower here. You can see in the background of the picture on the right is we have the 2 circuits that are going through here, but we also cross over 2 Edison circuits that are crossing over. Like I said, because this was reconductored back in the Blue Cut fire, this was a lot easier with the new aluminum conductor as compared to what would have to be done with the older copper conductor. So this is really the most important slide and the last item here. And the last point that you see is that August 13th at 16:46 hours, we were able to re-energize. So this was only 8 days after the car was hit the structure and it started leaning over. And that's really the big point I wanted to make here is the ability of our crews to be able to mobilize, clear the site, get environmental out there, get our engineering out there, and secure transfer and remove the old structure in a matter of 8 days to get this circuit back on is quite a feat. And I think it's, I just wanted to give a shout out to the group that did this, our transmission group, our engineering group, and our transmission construction group. This was a phenomenal turnaround to get this re-energized. Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Brian. And that concludes the general manager's report. Thank you.
Nancy, I just have a question for Anselmo.
Please go ahead.
Anselmo, does the Hyperion sewage spill have any impact on our water supply operations, especially because there were millions of recycled water used, right, to ameliorate the situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the Hyperion spill, the biggest impact is some of the water that was available that goes to West Basin Municipal Water District for recycled water purposes. Some of that supply was affected. We also have the Playa Vista area that receives water that is treated at Hyperion. So the water through Playa Vista is being fed at this moment. I believe they're still working with West Basin on the supply to their service area.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? Then thank you all for the respective reports. Incredibly impressive work by the power system. Brian, thank you for that. Sorry, I missed it. Are there any additional motions or any motions for future consideration? I am not aware of any. Do we have a comment from the ratepayer advocate on agendized items at this time, or would you like to withhold comment until items come up?
I will withhold my comments on item 8, and if there are questions on other items, we will speak on them, and we'd like to compliment DWP on the addition of the 2 new executives in diversity and IT. Those are important steps forward.
Thank you. And I was remiss in not joining Nancy on behalf of the board in welcoming our 2 new members of our senior executive team. So welcome to you both. Then we're moving to items, to item 6, a discussion with neighborhood council. Board Secretary, is there anything on that item?
No community impact statements were received by any neighborhood councils on the items on today's agenda.
Okay, terrific. On item 7, I've got a couple of items that I'd like to call special. Items 13, 16, and 21.
Commissioner, pardon the interruption, but there has been a request from the CAO's office to defer item 13.
Okay. Well, then we don't need to call that special. Are there any other items that commissioners would like to have reports on? All right, then I would like to at this time consider a motion for items 10 through 12, items 14 through 15, items 17 through 20, items 22 and 23. Is there a motion for approval?
I move approval of those items.
Is there a second? I'll second. Would you call the roll?
Board President McCLAIN-HILL,
Aye.
Vice President Reyes,
Aye.
Commissioner BARAD Hopkins,
I'm recusing myself at the board meeting.
Oh, on the minutes, Board President McCLAIN-HILL, Commissioner BARAD Hopkins wasn't at that meeting, so she's just not, she's recusing herself from item 10.
Would you then make item, then we can't get unanimous consent on item 10?
Correct. Just till after, we could do a vote after.
Yes, ma'am. If we could modify your motion, Susanna, to remove item 10, is that okay?
That'll be great.
All right, and I will.
Hey, Nermina.
I'm sorry?
Hey, Nermina.
What? Can you hear me?
Like, they haven't even approved it yet.
Commissioner
Okay,
Laird.
I think we can continue. The motion has been modified and a second, I accept the modification. So we're, would you recall the roll?
Sure. President McCLAIN-HILL,
Aye.
Vice President Reyes,
Aye.
Commissioner BARAD Hopkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Laird.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Terrific, thank you. We can move now to management reports, and we'll start with 8A.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nazir Fazli, Chief Safety Officer, and today myself and Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Israel, will provide a COVID-19 task force update. Next slide, please. Starting with monthly trend of COVID-19 cases, in month of July, we experienced a sharp increase in number of positive cases in water and power. In total, we had 98 positive cases reported in month of July. In the same time period, City of Los Angeles as well as County of Los Angeles were also reporting a significant rise in number of test positivity rate in those areas. In August up until August 19, we have recorded 94 cases of positive cases here. And also in August, we had 2 cases of outbreaks in one of our facilities. Outbreaks are when 3 or more employees belonging in the same exposed work group test positive for COVID-19. Both of those outbreaks were reported to Los Angeles County Public Health, as we are required to do so. And Los Angeles County Public Health, with the assistance from Corporate Health and Safety, investigated both of those incidents. Currently, we have 64 employees who are in isolation as a result of testing positive, and we have 58 employees in quarantine as a result of being identified as close contacts. And our total numbers since the beginning of pandemic, we have had 1,358 employees as of August 19 who have tested positive. Of those, less than 3% or 39 count have been identified as work-related. These are employee-to-employee transmission. That is a good indication that our existing protocols and safety practices are effective. Next slide, please. Also in month of July, we experienced our very first breakthrough case. Now, breakthrough cases are when a fully vaccinated person become infected and test positive for COVID-19. In July, we had 29 breakthrough cases. in addition to 69 unvaccinated employees who tested positive for a total of 98 cases. In August, we had 27 vaccinated employees who tested positive, breakthroughs, as well as 67 unvaccinated employees for a total of 94 cases. Our total breakthrough cases are 56 cases. This is roughly around 30% of all positive cases since July 1st through August 19th. And the City of Los Angeles, for the same time period, they report 30% of positive cases are breakthrough cases in the City of Los Angeles. Next slide, please. Early identification of positive cases through testing and removal and exclusion of employees who are positive from workplace is key element in our safety exposure control plan to keep and maintain a safe work environment. We continue to provide testing opportunities. These are rapid testing for all of our critical operations. These are weekly testing offered for all of our critical personnel. Since the beginning of this campaign, we have provided 3,791 antigen or rapid tests. In addition to rapid tests, we also offer employees PCR self-test kits. Now, employees have the option to pick up one of these self-test kits from various locations or have these test kits mailed, shipped to them directly to their residences. In total, we have administered almost 6,800 tests between antigen, rapid tests, and PCR test kits. We do have 2 contracts in place, one for our rapid testing and another one for our PCR test kits. Both are well funded, and we do have the option to renew those contracts if we need to. We are in good position to meet current and future testing needs for water and power. And next slide, please. We continue to coordinate with Local 18 to host vaccination opportunities for our employees. These events are hosted at JFB, and all of our employees and their families are invited to take advantage of these testing opportunities. And we've had a great deal of success in having employees take advantage of this opportunity, as well as, and this is also open and available for other employees of other city departments, which some do take advantage of this opportunity. To date, we have 3,661 employees who have been vaccinated through resource office at either LADWP events or one of LAFD stations. And in addition to that, we have 1,443 employees who have vaccinated through other means, but they have reported their status to resource office, for a total of 5,104 employees have been vaccinated. Also for resource office, early in month of August, we knew, based on the increase in the number of positive cases, the workload increased significantly, and we anticipated that additional staff was needed. So we have added 2 more staff to resource office efforts, and we are expecting 3 more to help us make sure that the resource office stays on top of their core function, which is contact tracing and responding to employee questions and concerns. And next slide, please. At this time, I will turn it over to our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Isra.
Thank you, Mr. Bosley. Good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to take a brief review of the current issues. As you can see, the CDC, and as many of you may have heard about, third doses and boosters. On August 13th, the CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, that are known as ACIP, recommended third doses for immunocompromised people. And immunocompromised people are people such as transplant recipients, active cancer treatment recipients, and others. On August 18th, the CDC announced a plan to offer booster doses of mRNA vaccines, that's your Pfizer and Moderna, to vaccinated people in the fall. And we understand that date, at least reportedly, to be around September 20th. The mRNA booster is recommended 8 months after the individual's second dose. And boosters will likely be needed for J&J recipients. More data is anticipated to be forthcoming. Next slide, please. So, as a global, national, state, and local level, we all know that COVID-19 continues to pose a significant public health risk, especially as cases surge with a highly infectious spread of the Delta variant. And we know vaccination is the most effective way to limit COVID-19 hospitalizations and deaths. So last week, the City Council, in its responsibility to protect its employees, contractors, and the public, announced this COVID-19 vaccination requirement. Now, as indicated in this ordinance, completion of the bargaining process with affected unions is pending, and LADWP's review of the city ordinance is occurring, and the bargaining process will be forthcoming. Next slide, please. So I want to really just focus on, I want to highlight the vaccination reporting requirements of this ordinance, which is being addressed by the COVID-19 task force in collaboration with our city and LADWP and labor partners. By the way, the COVID-19 task force meets bi-weekly with MEA and with IBEW Local 18. So let me review briefly what we see here, and that is to protect the city workforce and the public that it serves, all employees must be vaccinated for COVID-19 or request an exemption and report their vaccine status in accordance with the city's workplace safety standards no later than October 19th of 2021. And as of October 20th, 2021, the COVID-19 vaccination and reporting requirements are conditions of city employment unless approved for an exemption from the COVID-19 vaccination requirement as a reasonable accommodation for a medical condition or restriction or sincerely held religious beliefs. Okay? Now, it goes on to state that boosters may be required in accordance with public health guidance, and that would be at a later date. So I want to reiterate the completion of the bargaining process with affected unions is pending. And again, LADWP review of the city ordinance is occurring. And now I'd like to have Mr. Fosley touch on the vaccine verification process that's been developed. Thank you, Mr. Fosley.
Thank you, Dr. Israel. Next slide, please. Corporate health and safety, they've been working since July 28 when Los Angeles Mayor's directive was published requiring all departments to verify and track vaccination status for all employees. Corporate health and safety has been working closely with ITS to develop an intranet-based application. They're also coordinating with cybersecurity to make sure that to ensure collection and delivery of data meets the cybersecurity standards from beginning to the end, from data collection, delivery, and storing those information. It meets cybersecurity standards. And this application allows employees to access through a DWP computer, enter necessary basic information, submit information to resource office for verification. And now all of this whole process, like I said, will be encrypted and it will be secured and will only be available to authorized personnel as a need-to-know basis. In addition to this application, employees will have option to provide their vaccination status via WebEx. They can schedule a WebEx meeting with resource office and do the same process over a WebEx meeting. Or for those who may not be able to have access to a reliable DWP computer, they have the option of making appointments with resource office in person and providing their vaccination status in person. Next slide, please. The Communication and Public Affairs Division have been instrumental in communicating task force messages to our employees. A number of methods used to communicate with our employees, including targeted emails. These targeted emails go specifically to specific individuals, for example, CDCC or COVID division compliance coordinators or facility managers, as well as text messages and video for information, and as well as hosting or maintaining a website where more than almost 15,000 employees have accessed this website to gain information. Communication is a key element of our safety program, not only disseminating information to our employees, but also to get feedback. That tells us if our programs or policies are effective, if they're working. We may base our decision based on the feedback we get from our field folks. Next slide, please. And this is just a website, as I talked about earlier, maintained by our Communication and Public Affairs Division. Employees have access to this via DWP computers or personal computers at home. All information necessary needed, they can access through this website. Also, resource office phone number is listed. Employees can access resource office if they have any specific questions they need to ask. That concludes our presentation. At this time, if there are any questions, we'll be glad to answer.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from board members?
I'm just curious if you have already looked at nuances with regards to accommodations of fully vaccinated employees once that time comes. And specifically, my interest is focused on an assumption that fully vaccinated employees who may be required to return to work don't need any accommodation at all, and we have to be very careful and not assume that an employee does not require an accommodation relating to COVID-19 simply because that employee is fully vaccinated. And I would be interested in what approach the department will take, especially when it comes to reasonable accommodation and the interactive process that should take place once that employee requests for an accommodation, even though that employee is fully vaccinated.
Commissioner, I think what we're going to do, like we do with everything regarding reasonable accommodation, is we're going to take everything on a case-by-case basis. Okay. We will look at the facts, we will have the discussion, we'll get all the information we need before we make any decisions to bring anyone back who has not been in the office. As you know, we have a number of employees who have been off for a number of reasons. And so at some point in time, we're going to have to reach out to all of these employees and start having a discussion as to what their current status is. Do they still need to continue to work from home? You know, even those individuals who have been fully vaccinated, we're going to ask the same questions because we do understand that there may be situations at home where they have someone who's immune compromised, they have young children, they don't want to be passing on anything to any of their family members. And because of the breakthrough cases that are occurring, you know, right now, that seems to be a major concern going forward. We'll have to consider all of that before we decide to bring anyone back.
Yeah, and also, Shannon, to take a look at whether we're going to have some guidance on to mask or not to mask, right? Indoors Correct. Or outdoors at the workplaces.
Correct. All that stuff we're having to kind of work through right now. and we'll continue to have to work through in the future, because unfortunately, I don't see this thing going away anytime soon. So, I mean, I'd like to be able to say in the next 3 months, everything will be great and we'll all have our lives back, but, you know, doesn't seem to be pointing in that direction right now. But, you know, with the vaccinations and with people signing up for the vaccines, I think we'll have a greater shot at something that used to resemble what our life used to be before this.
Thank you.
Any additional questions before I start?
Yes.
Okay, Nazir, you indicated, I'm sorry, I saw, Jill, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I have a question. When you're talking about breakthrough, do you mean the actual COVID-19 or do you mean the Delta variant? Which one are you referring to?
So
Go ahead.
I'm glad you asked this question. A breakthrough means a breakthrough of the COVID-19 infection. Now, the Delta variant is something that you and I, if we go get tested, we won't know. If we had an Alpha variant, a Delta variant, all we'll know is we're positive for COVID-19. So we don't know how many of those are the Delta variant. I hope that answers that question, Commissioner Barak.
Yes, and then so will the Delta variant booster will be available in the fall to employees, is that correct?
So the booster that the CDC is recommending for the general public is going to be Moderna. It's the mRNA, which is Moderna or Pfizer. And it is not targeted against us. It's targeted as it was. It's for the COVID. It's a COVID-19 vaccine. Did that answer the question, Commissioner Barad?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So if we could go back to this slide that just gives us the cases over time. I'm very interested in what that pattern looked like before and where we are now. So as I recall the slide, we were at very low incidence of reported COVID cases in June, a significant uptick in July, and August, we're already halfway through August. We were already at, nearly the July peak. So just based on that trend, we're looking at another uptick in August. And if we go back a little ways to October, November, December, we sort of started seeing a similar pattern. Hopefully the numbers don't get as high. But both that and the percentage of breakthrough cases, you said 30%, and you indicated that that is tracking the city. Is that tracking city and county? We're looking at a 30% COVID breakthrough rate for people who are vaccinated?
That is correct. Not County of Los Angeles have not published their report, but City of Los Angeles on Friday, they published in August, 30% of positive cases, they reported to be the breakthrough type, yes.
I didn't realize that that data was kept at the city, not county level, but that's fine. If it's 30%, it's 30%. I guess as I look at these numbers, they seem to have pretty significant implications for both a return to work strategy, since the breakthrough certainly has significant implications for what might have been previously assumed to be the safety of circulation once vaccinated, since apparently 30% is a pretty high number of people who are completely vaccinated who've gotten infected with COVID. So I'm very interested in understanding that and the implications that that may have for how we return to work. Also, you indicated that we have 2 COVID outbreaks currently. Is that correct?
That is correct. The 14-day has lapsed, but we're still have not received a release or a letter from County of Los Angeles basically ending the period. So, but the 14-day period has lapsed since the last case was reported.
And these were in the power system?
That is correct. Both of these outbreaks were at the Truesdale facility, training facility. Correct.
Training facility. So I guess my other question then goes, or my other concern is around safety and mitigation measures and the degree to which they are being followed and are appropriate to various work sites. Again, as a means of further reducing the transmission of COVID and the potential that even someone who's been vaccinated may transmit COVID to a family member or some other party who, for whatever reason, hasn't been vaccinated or could not be vaccinated. So those are all things that I'm hopeful that we are considering and working through as we continue to think about when and how various sectors of the department return to work. It would seem to me that rather than looking at a kind of blanket wholesale return, that we'd want to be focused very much on what's necessary for critical operations. We want to continue to look at areas where people are effectively working remotely, because to the extent that we can extend that opens up space for people that are coming back to be able to observe proper mitigation measures. I know this isn't a return to work presentation, and we'll be looking for something in September that speaks more to that as conditions continue to evolve and conversations with labor also evolve around vaccine mandates. But I just want to be really clear that we have to be guided by the conditions as they exist in real life, as opposed to the aspiration of a rapid return to normalcy, since, as Shannon pointed out, that does not appear to be in the cards as we sit here today.
And the other thing, Commissioner McCLAIN-HILL, I wanted to mention is that I've asked Dr. Israel in particular to start having conversations with her public health official colleagues regarding what we anticipate the flu season to look like as well. Because last year we were really lucky that we didn't have much of a flu season, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case this year. And so we want to make sure that any decisions we make are considering that as well, in addition to where we are with these breakthrough cases and where we are with the Delta variant and any other variants that might present itself as being more problematic going forward. So just to have that on the radar as well.
No, thank you. Very much appreciated. I know that we've got a staff of more than 10,000 people that are anxiously awaiting some news and or guidance, and that we are not in a position to provide significant guidance at this juncture, except to say that our actions will be driven by the need to maintain public health and safety of all of our employees. And as difficult as it is to execute, as comprehensively as we might like under these remote conditions, it does behoove us to continue to think through how to be as effective as possible and as strategic as possible in terms of safely bringing people back into a formal work setting. So I appreciate everybody's tracking on this. and look forward to continued updates. Is there anything else, or are we ready to move on?
Thank you.
Hearing nothing, I think we'll move to 8B. Thank you.
Okay, so on 8B, I've asked Faye Strong, who is the manager over this program, to go ahead and give the presentation. Mike Wooding is also on the call. If there's any questions, he and others will be able to chime in as well as myself. So Faye, you want to go ahead and start?
Good morning, commissioners. I also have Angela Tatum with me, who's the primary IT support for Records Center. I'll start off by stating that the Records Management Program is required by the city's Administrative Code, Section 12, to protect vital and historical records. Vital records are defined as those essential for and to meet legal obligations. And I'd just like to give some examples. Deeds to real property, financial documents, drawings showing the location of power and water distribution lines. On the other hand, historical records include photographs and documents. One of the examples is the board agendas and meetings dating back to 1906, general correspondence from 1905, and historical information regarding Mulholland, Owens Valley, Aqueduct, and Colorado River. So that's just the example. The next slide, please. Next slide, I'm sorry, I already discussed this. Okay. The vision and mission of Records Center. So the vision is to provide accurate and efficient service utilizing modern technology. And the mission is to preserve, maintain, and provide ready access to LADWP records. So in successfully executing this vision and mission, the result will be A, environmental and sustainability benefits because of paper reduction, freeing up office space by moving physical records out to a storage facility, security of records through efficient storage and digitization, and also that's pretty much it. Oh, easy records retrieval. So next slide, please. The next slide is the services. Next slide. Services offered by the Records Management Program. So it's we pick up and deliver paper records. Approximately 250 boxes are processed monthly. The records are stored in both environmentally and non-environmentally controlled spaces. Our focus at this time is digitizing old commission meeting notes. Also, we maintain retention schedules for the various divisions, conduct searches for California Public Records Act and support litigations, and we destroy outdated records that are not vital or historic based on the administrative code and approval by divisions and department heads. And finally, we provide training for records management coordinators as requested for record-keeping purposes. In fact, we've trained 620 records management coordinators since June 2020. So this next slide is just a summary of the records that we've managed, both electronic and physical. The physical records are at 5848 Miramonte Boulevard, and we use O'Neill software for box management. But for electronic records, we use the IBM FileNet Content Manager. Over 5 million electronic records have been managed, approximately 900,000 boxes of maps, microfilm, and videos, and over 7,000 vital records boxes are stored in a salt mine in Kansas for preservation and for disaster recovery. Next slide, please. So I just included this as LADWP RM records management resources. As mentioned, we have O'Neill and we had FileNet, but I wanted to make note of the last one, Los Angeles Public Library, which hosts, it's a website, the TESA website, where LADWP historic photos can be found. So it's very interesting. And if you're interested to take a look at it at this point, we can do so. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next slide. And then, so the records management goal is in 2021, it's to reduce the amount of paper records and continue effort to digitize LADWP historical bound books. Over the past 2 years, we have reduced boxes stored by 2% and increased electronic records by 3%. Our current focus is on assisting divisions to digitize records. We are currently scanning old Board of Commissioner meeting minutes to preserve records of board actions and increase the ability to search these records. Over the 2 years, we've done 50% and 108 of 204 books of the commission. By the third quarter of 2022, we expect to have looked at technology and requirements for a tool to better manage retention schedules. So this concludes our brief overview presentation of the records management goals. If there are any questions, I would be happy to, Angela Tatum and I will be happy to respond.
So I have a number of questions, and thank you for this overview and presentation. As a member of the commission over the last several years, I've been privy to any number of presentations where we've been told records don't exist, deeds don't exist, we don't have, I mean, in fact, there was a huge part of the real estate presentation centered around missing information. So I am curious as to, and also I've had a brief independent sort of overview or briefing of our current record management sort of system. So there's systems and then there's actual compliance with systems. So I'm far more curious about how we are doing with respect to meeting our record management goals on a division level. And, what is, are we compliant with all of the legal and other, administrative requirements for maintaining records currently? So prospectively, is that system in place, being actively managed, and are we fine with the way that it's going? And then historically, there clearly have been gaps. What, if anything, are we doing to address those gaps? And do we have any particular target in mind for when we will have addressed our gaps and when we will be fully compliant? Those are my questions.
The short answer to one of the questions, are we in compliance, Commissioner? Yes, we are. For details of where there are gaps, I'd like to call on Angela because she's actually managing the Record Center from Miramonte. Angela?
So yes, Commissioner, again, we are compliant and we have been consistent for more than a decade in every division being compliant in having their records stored or digitized. So our efforts include, I provide training on a monthly basis, department-wide, for both physical, electronic, and e-form records management. And to get the information out, we have our own records management website where we have all of the services that we offer. And we do have an additional effort to get the information out there. It's vital records training. We had specific COVID training. So it is a matter of information being disseminated throughout the department, but we are making those efforts to publicize and publish that information on our website. And yes, we are only as good as our technology. So we are looking to build a technology roadmap on where we want to be with our systems and making information readily available on the web.
Yeah, Commissioner, I wanted to mention to you also that, you know, with Mr. Northrup starting, we do actually have a meeting scheduled with him and Mr. Brevich next week to kind of talk about what other technologies might be out there that we can avail ourselves of that would help expedite this. Because we are also kind of really interested in kind of looking at what we can do with the reset effort going to be undergoing soon, so that we don't keep moving papers and boxes and boxes and papers from construction site to construction site. Ideally, we'd like to be able to have, when they're done with the construction, we have a clean slate with regards to our records as well. So we are looking to see what other opportunities we could avail ourselves of, such that we're not just relying on FileNet for the digitization of our records going forward.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I will be looking for an additional report from records management probably in 6 months. I am aware of an audit that's currently underway. I will be interested in the results of that audit, but also a great deal more detail on our status as it relates to records management, drill down to division levels. You know, what are we collecting? Is it being done timely, etc. And I also will be very interested in plans toward further digitization. Yeah, clearly moving boxes and boxes and boxes of paper is not where we want to be. And again, appreciate just this high level overview, but you know, I know that sometimes the drudgery of keeping track of information, it's not the most glamorous thing in the world, and you know, affording appropriate resources to that particular task is sometimes, you know, difficult to secure. But I also know how critically important it is that you be able to identify and produce records when requested or when they're needed. This is one of those things that only comes up when you know, something hits the fan or there's some emergency, and then you absolutely need it. And the only way to have it is to be consistent and thoughtful and rigorous on the front end, so that you can produce what you need to produce on the back end. So thank you for this, and this is a conversation that we will continue.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Questions or comments from board members? I'm sorry, go ahead, Susanna.
Yes, thank you. I'll be also looking forward to, now that we have a new CIO, for a cloud management strategy for our records, and to take a look at that more securely, as well as how do we keep our vital information for business continuity and disaster recovery should anything happen. And at the same time, looking at best practices on how we can, you know, review and audit ourselves and improve the program on a continuous basis. So thank you for the high level presentation, but I just want to lay out expectations for the next round. Thank you.
Thank you,
Exactly.
Commissioner.
I was going to say, keep note of those things as you think about your next report to the commission. It's in those kinds of areas that we'd like to drill down.
Will do. Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, then we'll move to 8C.
This is Nancy Setley. I'll be giving the presentation on 8C, which will be an update on where we are with the utility debt relief. And we'll touch on some of the issues that were raised in public comment, but for your consideration. Go to the next slide, please. So you might recall, we basically two kind of pots of money that are available in terms of unpaid utility bills the California legislature and the governor in the most recent budget created 2 new programs, the California Arrearage Payment Program for energy bills, and then the California Water and Wastewater Arrearage Payment Program for water and wastewater bills. And then there are 2 federal programs, the already existing Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, LEHRER, and then a new program modeled on that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, called the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program. And next slide, please. So in terms of the state relief, we work through our colleagues, the California Municipal Utilities Association, and a number of community-based organizations who are advocating for this money from the state budget to assist with unpaid energy and water bills. And so in the budget, the legislature and the governor allocated essentially $1 billion for electric bills, electric and gas bills, and almost $1 billion for water and wastewater bills. And then subsequently passed 2 pieces of legislation that laid out more of the guidance and requirements for that money. So the first was explaining how the CAP program would be administered. So the State Department of Community Services and Development, so state CSD, and designated specifically almost $300 million of the energy dollars to be set aside for publicly owned utilities. And it also set up some of the initial requirements for the how the state would administer the new federal LADWP program. And then also another piece of legislation that set out the framework for the California Water and Wastewater Arrearage Program. Next slide, please. So this process is supposed to, on the energy side, is supposed to result in funds being dispersed at the end of January of next year. So all of the utilities, public, investor-owned cooperatives, and I believe even the community choice aggregators are eligible for this funding. And all customers are eligible to receive this if they have past due balances during this specific period, March 4th, 2020 to June 15th, 2021. And the legislature also designated priority for which that we have to follow for dispersing the funds among our customers. And this was in recognition, I'll talk a little bit more about this later, that there may not be sufficient funding to cover all unpaid utility bills, even in that period. And so the first priority is residential customers at risk of shutoff, then second, all residential, and then inactive customers, and then commercial customers. And the process works that the State Community Services Department put out a survey. And so we were asked to provide in that survey how much our arrearages were by customer type based on our actual billing data for the covered period. So that's the process that's going on right now to accumulate, to put together all that information. So that we can submit it to the state. And once the state receives that, then they will turn around and give us an allocation depending on both how much money is available and what we've submitted in terms of our analysis of the qualifying bills and the qualifying arrearage. And then they will send us the money, and then we apply it to customers' accounts. So the customer does not have to take any action if they will receive any of this money. So if they fit in any of the priorities, which all of our customers will fit in one priority, but it's not clear yet how much of that, how far we will get into the priority list. And then we also need to inform our customers when they're being credited to their bill. So we're working on that as well. And then the other thing that the legislature laid out was that we could not sever anyone who or disconnect anyone who would be receiving funds until 90 days after we have applied the relief funds. So that would push that out into the first quarter of next year. And then the legislature also requires that we provide a report to the Community Services Department on the funds applied. Next slide, please. So this is just the calendar, really. So some important dates, the survey response, so where we say how much money we have in arrearages that qualify. So for that period, that's due September 1st, although we're expecting there to be a little bit of an extension. And then we have to apply in October once the allocations are determined, and then we will get we will have a couple month period where we can apply for the funds, and then they will be fully dispersed by the Community Services Department by January 31st of next year, and then we have 60 days to apply the funds to a customer's account. Next slide, please. So the the equivalent program on the water side is actually being administered by the State Water Resources Control Board. So there's a whole separate but similar process going on at the State Water Board. They have put out their survey similarly, and then the same process that the allocation will be based on the survey responses. But in terms of how the monies will be applied, we're expecting there to be a meeting of the State Water Resources Control Board to adopt basically the guidelines for how the funding will be applied, and then the other issue is that the way that legislation was written, that the wastewater arrearages will not be covered until all of the water arrearages are covered. So we don't yet know whether city residents who have wastewater arrearages will get any relief on that. And as you know, we bill for wastewater as well. And so we're awaiting some additional guidance from the State Water Resources Control Board, but basically this will sort of work the same way. We would apply the funds to the customers' accounts without them having to take any action. Next slide, please. And again, this is just the timeline. So a lot of work going on right now to calculate the amount of arrearages that would be eligible to be covered, so that we can submit that number to the State Water Resources Control Board, and then we're awaiting the State Board's meeting to adopt the program guidelines, and then we should again receive the funds roughly in the same time period that we'll receive them on the energy side. Next slide, please. So the LIHEAP and LIHWEP programs, these are federal programs. LIHEAP is an existing program where the Congress put a lot more money than we have, I think, ever seen into the LIHEAP program. California, through some of the COVID relief bills, will get $518 million for LIHEAP, and then this new program, LIHWEP, will get about $116 million will come to California. This is a program that is administered also by the California Community Services Department, but it works differently. Customers must apply for bill assistance through a third party. There's a number of community-based organizations in LA County that are sort of designated by state CSD to assist customers with that application, and it is an income eligible program. And the other thing, it is a federal program, and as you heard from some of the public comment. So there are restrictions that apply because this is federal money. But the good thing is that it's not limited to the COVID relief period that both the CAP and the CWAP program are limited to. But we are still awaiting some. The state has to submit a plan to the Federal Health and Human Services Department that manages this program, and then they can begin implementation of that program. This is for the water program, and that money will be available for another couple of years. But that's the way LIHEAP has worked. It's a once a year thing. If somebody applies, if they're determined eligible, then we're told to. We get the money and we credit it directly to their bill. Next slide, please. And so, as a number of the public commenters noted, we do not believe that all of this combined relief will necessarily take care of all of the arrears for two reasons. One, even for the covered period, it's not clear that it's clear that the CAP will not cover everything that DWP might request, since it's let's see. And then there's additional arrears, 61 days or more, that are outside of the covered period. So at this moment, we believe that the arrears not covered by the state programs will be roughly about $400 million. And then we are working on a number of other things in terms of helping to support our customers, both in terms of the CAP and the CWAP programs themselves, and applying that to customers' accounts and informing customers and reaching out to customers on that, as well as promoting the LIHEAP and LIWAP programs to our qualifying customers, implementing our bill assistance programs, and increasing the customer outreach and support. So next slide, please. So as a number of public commenters noted, we had intended to end the moratorium on September 30th, but given that for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is that the state legislation creates this different calendar for the CAP funds, where we could not disconnect anyone who might be receiving those funds, that it makes sense, in our view, to recommend that we extend the moratorium into the first quarter of next year. Next slide, please. And just finally, trying to talk comprehensively about the assistance to customers. This is just a timeline way of viewing. So we're working on the CAP program. We believe it's prudent to extend the disconnection moratorium. We're working on ways to make it easier for those who qualify for our low-income discount programs and therefore may also qualify for LIHEAP and the LIWAP. Working on the extended payment arrangements and level pay. Working on additional customer outreach and a customer consultation pilot that will really be very hands-on assistance for our customers. We're participating in a study in a pilot program with the U.S. Water Alliance around water shutoffs, and working on our communications campaigns. And all of this, at some point, we will resume normal operations, likely in the second quarter of next year, around end of the moratorium. So I believe that is my last slide, if you have any questions. And there's some additional information in the appendix on the presentation.
All right, are there any questions or comments? Okay, I've got a few. So first, with respect to the moratorium, absolutely it must be extended through the first quarter of next year. And so, and I do think it's hugely problematic to be unclear about what we're doing in that regard. So we need to we need to determine how we're going to make that statement in a way that is clear and well known to everyone, so people aren't wondering what's going to happen with their bills. So that's, as a communications issue, something that we need to take on. I see in looking at this sort of the timeline, and thank you for providing that. There are a number of pieces, I think, that become super important that we've talked about for a long time that I've not seen anything around, and I'm looking forward to seeing something related to customer outreach and some of the programmatic things that we can do to help our customers navigate what's coming in terms of opportunities to secure funding for debt. But also to help them understand and navigate programs that we might be able to put forward to be helpful. Just with respect to, and I think there's something that was said during the public comment that I just want to emphasize, that it was, I didn't write it down, so I can't restate it verbatim, but it really was around the concept of our joining with advocates, with our customers, taking affirmative steps to ensure that people have the critical services of water and power. And in my mind, I don't even want to talk about sort of a return to normal operations that includes disconnecting people from water and power. I want to talk about how we avoid having to take such a dramatic step at all. As we continue to talk about equity in the city of Los Angeles, and as we talk about things that are basic human rights, clean water and power is foundational. And we've got to understand, as a public agency providing those critical services to our residents, that it's incumbent upon us to make our standard operating process or procedure doing everything possible to ensure delivery of those services. And that includes dealing with issues around affordability, working through this serious accumulation of arrearages in a way that does not result in wholesale disconnection notices. Then finally, with respect to that number, nearly $400 million, is that residential and commercial? What universe of customers does that? Because I've seen lots of numbers from the department, and they look a different way depending on how you slice them up. So I'm just very curious as to what that number represents.
Yeah, I believe it's all of the arrearages. I know I believe Ann Santilli is on.
Right.
Could you address that?
Yes, commissioners, it's all of the arrearages outside of what we think we're going to ask for all commodities that the department bills for. So that's electric, water, wastewater, refuge, and the bulky item fee.
And for me, it would be useful as we move forward for you, when you were talking to us, to not just present numbers that reflect everything we bill for, but to present a number that segregates out the services that we're providing, that we're collecting for, because the pass-through is important. And certainly we want to collect those, collections there are important as well, but we're essentially providing a service for other departments. We're not benefiting from collecting that fee And I don't want to see, it's easier for me to see numbers that reflect the services that we provide, water, power, what is that number? And also I'd like to see residential versus commercial. Those are just two breakouts. That would just be helpful nuances.
Those slides are in the appendix. Could we go to this next one? Yeah. So this is residential broken out by commodity, and then the next slide has commercial broken out by commodity.
And inactive is what?
Customers who had service have a balance with us but are no longer taking service.
Okay, so basically if I'm looking at that 29K, it's 18,000 that are currently receiving services from the Department of Water and Power. Is that right?
Yeah.
That have arrears over 61 days as of July.
Right, no, I understand, but I'm just, and looking at the numbers that are being provided, everything in gray represents accounts that are no longer receiving services. So accounts that were disconnected prior to the moratorium, is that right?
Or more likely closed.
Closed, moved,
Yeah,
they're just no longer.
Those, right.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and the inactive is important, not just for our, our arrearages, but also it is an allowable use of the CAP and CWAP money, but it's not clear that we will get that far down into the priority to apply those funds to inactive accounts. It's the third, the residential inactive is the third priority. So not clear yet we'll get that far.
Okay, well, no, this is helpful and it does provide additional nuance and perspective. We've got a lot to think about, a lot to talk about, but for me, North Star, it is maintaining services to customers in the city of Los Angeles. To the extent that we are going to require additional creativity and resources to do that, that in my mind is where we need to focus. And I do want to compliment everyone on the Herculean effort that it took to make sure that our issue remained a priority, both at the state and federal level. It was a very different picture just a few months ago before these resources became available. And so, we have to take our wins when and where they come. So thank you all for that. I just look forward to continued work in this area.
Yeah, we'll be pleased to come back in September with more detail on some of the other issues that we mentioned and were brought up, and then return with some. We've got the direction on the moratorium, and we'll figure it out.
Okay. Anything else?
I just would like to I'm interested, Nancy, and on the more clarification on the process itself. Basically, also the comments that we received this morning about easing and streamlining the processes, our technology, barriers that applicants have had, and also how are we going to be working with our CBOs in terms of outreach as well?
Yeah. So just as I mentioned, so that the CAP and the CBAC program, customers don't have to do anything, and we will let them know what's going on, and they will get a credit on their bill without taking any action up until we spend all the money we get from the state. And then I'm going to ask George Raffel to address some of the outreach issues, particularly on low income, and then how it relates to LIHEAP and LIHWAP. George?
Good afternoon, George Raffel, Customer Service. So you know, getting the word out to our customers is going to be the key for a lot of those changes that we're doing. So we completely agree. We're looking to expand the grants with the CBOs. Those are currently in progress. Also, we're pulling all the customers that have had a challenge in applying for our low income discount program. We're going to be outreaching to them directly, explaining kind of the new process around how to sign up for the programs. And, but we'll be kicking that off next month when the new changes go into place. And then the other is, you know, as Nancy mentioned, you know, the key is we want to, you know, we've had customers that have been in arrears. We're going to be applying this, but then there are additional funds that'll be through LIHEAP and LIHWAP. And the key is to be able to let them know of these and how they can be able to close the gap on the remaining fund, you know, amounts due. So we are looking at setting up some targeted communications, really doing it by segments where it's not just a generic message, but really targeting it to them specifically so they can resonate. And then we're setting up customer consultations where we can walk them through that process in detail, not just kind of react to a call that's coming in, but schedule time with them where they can have the information ready. We've done the research on the accounts, and then we can sit down with them and take the time to walk them through it step by step. And so we're looking to also launch that in October, end of next month, early October.
Are you partnering, George, with Maravilla and PACE as well on the LIHEAP portion?
Yes, definitely. So for LIHEAP, we're going to continue our communications with them in relationship and ensure, you know, figure out the details on how the additional funds will be applied. And then we're waiting for some details on LIHWAP, which we expect to be going through the same channels. But they've been great partners, and we're looking to continue to work with them.
Okay.
I think Commissioner Barad Hopkins has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Barad.
Fred. Oh, no, Dr. Pickle.
Good afternoon. A couple questions. One, with regard, if we were to go back one slide, the state cap priorities only list customer status. It doesn't make any reference to customer income. Do I understand that correctly?
That's correct. The legislature did not make any distinction among, you know, in terms of prioritizing customers by income, only whether they were at risk of disconnection. And the legislation literally says at risk of disconnection. So one of the issues has been trying to interpret what that exactly means.
Yeah, as part of our proposed plan, could we propose within those categories a low-income lifeline prioritization? That's on one hand, and on the other, what controls do we need in place to make sure we don't have a large number of people getting their arrears reduced because they're low income or lifeline, but also simultaneously applying and getting LIHEAP funds?
Well, and on the second question, I don't know if Anne's had any comment, but I mean, I think one theory is that the LIHEAP and the LIHWAP funds will help people cover the periods outside of the covered period for CAP and CWAP. You know, we're not sure yet because we're still we haven't submitted our numbers to the state and haven't gotten them back yet. But we may be able to cover all of priority one. We don't know. I think other utilities are assuming they'll be able to cover their priority one. So we'll just have to see. So the priority one are residential customers at risk of disconnection. Some subset of them are also eligible for LIHEAP and LIHWAP, and that could cover the period outside any arrearages that occurred in the period outside of the March 4th, 2020 to June 15th, 2021 that the CAP and the CWAP program. And I think there's some, you know, some logic to sort of looking at it that way. So that may assist that. But the legislature declined, although I think there were people who were advocating for them to make some distinction around low-income customers. So in terms of meeting the legislative requirements, I'm not sure that we could make that distinction because the priorities are set out in the legislation itself.
One last question. Is DWP staff or the board planning on proposing a board motion to extend the moratorium deadline now, or will that be done shortly?
If a motion's required, we certainly can move that forward at our next board meeting. However, I believe that the staff has been amenable to taking direction with respect to the end of the moratorium, and that we are in consensus that it will stay in effect through March. Through the end of the first quarter. If there's some ambiguity around that, Dr. Pickle, we can certainly take it up at the next board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. I appreciate that. We've got filed items. Any questions or comments with respect to the monthly reports or the informational report filed under 9A or 9B? Okay, seeing none, hearing none. We are on agenda item 10. That's the recommendation for approval of minutes. Is there a motion with respect to the approval of the minutes?
I move approval of the minutes.
I second. Would you please take the roll, Board Secretary?
Yes, President McCLAIN-HILL.
Aye.
Vice President Reyes.
Aye.
Commissioner LEHRER.
Aye.
3 ayes.
Terrific. We've got just 2 items remaining, and then we go into closed session. I know it's 12:25 and we've been going for a while, but if we could just briefly get through these 2 items, then we can take a break, if that's okay with everybody. So item 16, I actually called special.
Would you like a presentation, or do you have questions?
I actually am reasonably fine with the item. My only question is to the delegation of authority to the general manager for future grant agreements. I'm not certain. Is there a reason for that delegation? I kind of would prefer to see them at board.
Only for streamlining the process. We've done that with some other grant programs, and but whatever the board would like, we will certainly do. We also had added to the presentation that if you approve the delegation, that we would provide a quarterly report to the board on the grant program, including the selection and metrics associated with approved grants. But we certainly can do it either way.
I don't want to, I'm interested in knowing more. I don't know if I need a presentation exactly. Can you just tell me what 3 of the grants are, just so I have a sense? Just in the interest of time.
Yeah. You just wanted, I'm sorry, you wanted to know what, you have questions about specific grants, or?
Well, you have 9 grants apparently.
Yes, okay.
So just describe 3 of the grants to me, to what the projects are.
Okay. Catherine, do you want to go to the slide with the?
Yeah, sure. That would be slide 6.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Keep going.
Keep going.
There is a slide in here that
Yeah.
has the projects, and we can talk about them.
Sure. There we go. Sorry about that.
Go ahead, Catherine. First,
Sure.
introduce yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Nancy, and good afternoon to the commission. It's a pleasure to be here. So our selected applicants, as you can see here, the organizations are Climate Resolve, the Internal Services Department, our Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition, and the Toberman Neighborhood, the One Generation, the U.S. Green Building Council for Los Angeles, the LA Community College District, Discovery Cube, and Proclaim Beautiful. And the way that there were various ways that they, we have a criteria of how they're chosen, mainly on electrification, as you can see, and solar. And this is because they're funded through our LCFS program, our Low Carbon Fuel Standard program, and our AB 32 program, which is funding through the state. And so there's very specific type of criteria that we have to follow in order to be able to approve and give the money to. And so these particular applicants that were selected, each of them have different types of milestones. Each agreement, as you could see in your packet, were specific for each project. And they last anywhere from 18 to 36 months, depending on the type of project the applicant put forth. And so, like, for instance, you asked for, you wanted to know what would be, like, one of the applicants, let's just look at the LA County Bicycle Coalition. They're going to be purchasing 42 of the e-bikes. It's going to cost them about $490,000.
How many bikes? Sorry, excuse me.
$490,000 for their project. And their particular project, they're the one with the 18-month project, because as you can imagine, it's probably one of the easiest. And so they would be putting select bicycles in different parts of the areas in Council District 15. And so then we also have, like, the LA County Bicycle Coalition as well, purchasing, purchasing also. I'm sorry, that's one just went over. But the LA, where is it? The LA County Community College District. So this is going to be an electrification of their boiler plant. They're getting some electrified landscape tools, and they will also be doing outreach and education. In all of our applicants, we require them to do some sort of outreach and education with the community, so that the community understands about reducing greenhouse gases and how important going to solar and electrification is to us in order for us to reduce the greenhouse gases. This particular project is going to take about 24 months. It's a little bit more involved, but the price is about the same. It's close to $500,000. Each of our applicants, it's either between, we're giving out between $100,000 and $500,000 right now, because you did approve the $20 million, I think, several board meetings ago, and that will allow us to approve about $4 million over 5 years for each round of selected applicants. So we've capped each project to about $500,000 so that we can stay and within that figure, and also be able to spread out as much as we can over the 5 years and the $20 million. And then another one would be Proclaim of the Beautiful. We're also giving them for e-bikes. And theirs is also, you can see it's around $500,000. And their particular project is going to take about 36 months.
Mhm. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. And I'm assuming that next year, you'll tell us how things are going as you're giving the next.
No, don't eat that.
Yes, of course. And like Nancy was saying, we will be submitting to you a quarterly report on the applicants and our progress, and
Right.
you'll get a full report on all the applicants and their projects.
It'd be nice also to keep metrics over the next years.
Yeah,
'cause,
and that's part of the agreement with the applicants, that they will submit, information about, because we have to report on the greenhouse gas emission reductions and a number of other things. So we will be collecting those and reporting on those metrics.
Mhm.
So we're looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. Exciting, and it's like we're getting things done. People are going to start seeing e-bikes in many places and up and down the LA basin. So that's wonderful.
Great.
Thank you for that. As I indicated, there are a number of things that I'm interested in. I'm interested in the additional outreach that's planned, the additional or broader spectrum of individuals and organizations that you will be seeking to include in future grants. And so I would very much like to see this come back to the board for approval, as opposed to delegating to the general manager. So I would like to move passage of the resolution, but with the deletion of the provision of delegated authority to the general manager.
So Commissioner, just procedurally, the first move would be a vote to amend the motion to remove delegation.
We do have, Commissioner McCLAIN-HILL, we do have some slides on our outreach initiatives, if you'd like to see those.
No, I don't need to see them now.
Okay.
All right, so I have to move to amend the motion to amend the resolution to delete the delegation to the general manager. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
So I make that motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Would you take the roll, please?
President McCLAIN-HILL,
Aye.
Vice President Reyes,
Aye.
Commissioner Barad Hopkins, Commissioner Barad Hopkins, Commissioner LEHRER.
I guess aye.
3 ayes, it passed.
Thank you. And now if we could move passage of the motion, that would be terrific. So I move passage of item 16.
Second.
President McCLAIN-HILL,
Aye.
Vice President Reyes,
Aye.
Commissioner Barad Hopkins,
Aye.
Commissioner LEHRER.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Terrific. Then we can move to item 21. And I just have a question about 21.
Hello, Commissioners.
Hello.
Hi, this is Mark Northrop. So I'll be answering the questions with the help of the team. So it's my first commission.
Oh my. Well, welcome.
Nice to meet everyone. Thanks.
It's very good to see you. I'm so sorry that I haven't had the opportunity to meet you already, but thank you for stepping up to item 21.
Great.
So my question with respect to item 21 is, does this at some point end? Is this a function of, and I know that I'm beating a dead horse, so you can just tell me again, that is this a function of legacy systems, legacy proprietary systems where there's only one person that can help us? We have to keep these systems going into the future until we've executed our transition to a new technology infrastructure that doesn't require this kind of support?
No, great question. You're absolutely right. This is the technology that we're embedded with right now because it integrates with so many of our critical systems, for example, our Maximo system and other procurement systems as well. So this is the interim solution until our new system, iValua, is implemented with part of the ERP program, and which is the phase 3 portion of it. So again, this is an interim step to our transition that was already started under the previous, under Lewis and others in this group here, to basically, excommunicate ourselves from this ERSP system over time within 3 to 4 years.
Okay, so we're extending the term. Do we believe this will be our final extension, or will we be back again?
Another great question, because you're absolutely right. I asked the same question being here just now 7 days of the team, and that is the belief. And I actually have seen the plans and believe this is the last amendment that you'll see for this particular company called AGMA, because what we have in place is a fairly good plan for the ERP system. I mean, excellent program. And then this is to get us through that transition and also provide us the maintenance, the necessary help to convert files that were under ERSP into our systems so that we maintain continuity of our existing procurement programs, as well as for analytical purposes going forward. So this should be the final extension with AGMA.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry to have troubled everyone with my, not well-veiled frustration around these kinds of technology matters, but happy to know that we're making progress and that we expect that this will be the end of this, the need for these services. So I appreciate that. I move for approval of item 21.
I second.
Would you please call the roll?
President McCLAIN-HILL,
Aye.
Vice President Reyes,
Aye.
Commissioner Barad Hopkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Lair.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Terrific. Does that conclude our open session agenda? I think that does. And so
Can I ask a question, and I can ask it later or now? There was a grant to LAUSD that hasn't come up here. Is that something we could discuss and, ask Nancy about in closed session, or can I just ask?
we can't discuss any items that are not on our agenda.
Okay.
But you can certainly follow up with Nancy regarding any grant that you have an interest in.
We will follow up with you, Commissioner Lehrer.
Okay, thank you.
And we will be recessing moving into closed session. It's 12:40. If we could do that at 1 o'clock. Hopefully that gives folks just a little bit of time for a quick break. And closed session shouldn't be too very, very long. Joe, if you could take us off and move into our.
Certainly. At this point, the board will recess into closed session to discuss the closed session portion of the agenda in accordance with California Government Code Section 54957.1. We will report any final actions taken therein. We are in recess until 1 p.m. Commissioners, please note there's a separate login for the closed session agenda. Thank you. We are in recess.
Thank
Please
you.
remain silent while all mics are turned off. Thank you.